Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for October 8th, 2021, recorded around 2:20 p.m. Eastern Time. We have a lot to talk about today, including the potential for a tropical depression or storm to be forming off the coast of the Carolinas over the next several days, and a storm that may threaten coastal Mexico on the eastern Pacific side within the next 7 to 10 days. So jumping straight into everything, taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we continue to monitor a couple of systems on our plate. First, from west to east, we have Invest Area 91E over here in the eastern Pacific Basin. This is now beginning to move off towards the west and northwest here, and will continue to do so over the next several days. And this could become a threat down the road to portions of Mexico as time goes on. We are also watching another invest out here. This is Invest Area 92L in the Atlantic Basin, and this again will be kind of just drifting around here over the next several days and could become a tropical depression or storm for a brief period of time as it meanders around here in the Gulf Stream. Taking a look here on the tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center, we can see very clearly this is the area highlighted by the National Hurricane Center. Currently, the Hurricane Center is giving us a 40% chance of development over the next 5 days. Again, this is going to be meandering around just much around the Gulf Stream over the next several days, but could get close enough here to portions of coastal North Carolina to provide some impacts in the form of gusty winds and heavy rainfall over the next several days. If we take a look here at the visible satellite imagery today, what we can tell here is that the circulation has become a little bit more defined today. Again, here's the circulation right now. This is not necessarily a closed low-level circulation, but it is getting there, as evident by some of the low-level flow trying to curl all the way around here. So we are dealing with a near-closed low-level circulation at this point. But most of the convection is well removed off towards the east and southeast of the system and is not really necessarily coupled with this low-level circulation. And because of that, this is not being named a depression or storm at this particular point. An earlier ASCAP pass from yesterday did reveal that this was producing some 30-knot winds here, 30 to 35-knot winds here on the east and southeast side. Now, there's also another problem here, and that problem is this upper-level low that is sitting across portions of Indiana and the Great Lakes right now, and this has a trailing cold front with it. You can kind of see that this front is pushing through and is somewhere right in about here at this particular point. And with that being said, out ahead of this, it's not a very strong front, but it's a weak front. Not ahead of this, there's a pretty decent warm air mass sector over through here and a shortwave impulse that is coming across the Carolinas, providing some focus for the potential for some severe weather across portions of the Florida East Coast and all the way into portions of South Carolina today. This is our next approaching system that will be providing a lot of shear over top of the system over the next several days. Now, if we take a look here at the Gfs Low Level Flow, this is the 850 millibar vorticity, where the spin in the atmosphere at about 5,000 feet off the ground. And for context here, these deeper reds and oranges, that's your higher cyclonic spin at your 5,000 foot level. Right now, here's our system off the coast of the Carolinas. Not really well defined today, but we go out forward in time. This is now going about 24 to 36 hours, and we can see right off the coast of North Carolina, we in fact do get a little small system to try to spin up down here. And the reason for that, if we look here at the 200 millibar wind profile, this is actually right when the wind shear will be at its most favorable over top of 92L. And this is because this is now kind of in a trough in between this next approaching wave over here and this departing wave over here. So it's going to be kind of stuck in this little tut-like feature here, where there may be a little bit of a pocket of lighter shear, probably on the order of 15 to 20 knots, so it's still high, but it may facilitate and be enough for some increase in organization. Now, we already know that given the visible satellite structure today, and given this circulation is evident, it would not take too much more organization to classify this as a depression or storm. You really just need to close off here on the southern side, and this will be a closed circulation. And of course, we need that deep convection to sustain itself, but if it can do that, we will probably be looking at a storm, depression or storm on our hands. Now, after this time here, this is expected to be very short-lived. We have another trough that is coming across here, very amplified pattern as we get trough after trough to move across the United States here. This is also going to be responsible for creating some pretty significant severe weather here. We notice a 995 surface low here and just a screaming jet here in the upper levels of about 70 to 90 knots. And this is going to be enough to provide the focus for some pretty significant severe weather potential across portions of Oklahoma. And back behind it in the cold sector, there's going to be a pretty massive snowstorm on the back side of that, which we'll talk in more detail probably in tomorrow's video. Now, in the mid-level steering pattern here, just a real quick look. Again, not really concerned about talking about a long-term system, but we could be dealing with a rainmaker also over Florida. There's a broad upper-level low here over Bahamas and South Florida that could be providing the focus for some rainfall over the next several days. This is not necessarily associated with 92L currently. In fact, you can kind of see it's just this broad trough of low pressure, and it's actually this area right in here. This is the area that we'll be watching to kind of drift southward and become a problem over the next several days, perhaps providing the potential for some flooding rainfall, but not expecting any tropical development out of that. And in fact, we do see that there's this upper level low here by about day 6 or 7. This will be interesting to watch, but again, we'll just have to kind of keep the trends on with that. European forecast model, much of the same general idea. We get a storm that kind of ends up forming near the coast of the Carolinas. We do see that we get kind of two pieces of energy, one that splits southward and one that splits northward. This northward component here will likely be the storm because the low-level flow here is generally one out of the north, and eventually this will kind of get swept away and carried out to sea. We will have to watch the potential for a storm, of course, to be threatening Mexico, and this is when we jump into the Mexican sector here. So here we go on the eastern Pacific side of everything. We have Invest Area 91E. This now has, I believe, an 80% chance of developing over the next 5 days as it moves generally westward and eventually turning a more northward later in towards the week and into next week. And again, for interest here in Mexico, this is especially important because we could be dealing with some pretty substantial impacts coming up later in the week. Take a look here at the visible satellite imagery right now. We notice that it's located within a broad monsoon trough. We notice that this is the intertropical convergence zone. We have winds converging here, coming out of the south here, coming out different directions here. And right around here, you have this broad cyclonic spin, and this is our invest. It's not very particularly well organized at the moment, but this will be continuing to move westward into an increasingly favorable environment. And we can take a look here at the GFS forecast. Again, the same 850 millibar vorticity, but at this time we'll jump up to the 200 millibar wind profile. And we can see right now where our system is currently located, right in about here. Not very well organized, but does have this little bit of an anticyclonic flow aloft. So it's already looking pretty good. And we're going to be watching this trough to dig in across here over the next several days. Now, we notice here on the GFS, again, we kind of do have this belonged anticyclone over here, which is going to be restricting some of the outflow here on the northern and kind of northeastern side. And this could become a problem, in fact, because our system may not be able to ventilate as well here on the northern side, but eventually we can see how this upper level low kind of retrogrades, and we kind of get this to back away, and our storm at this point kind of takes off, generates its own anticyclonic flow aloft. Now, this is here on Tuesday, and if we jump out here to the European on the same day, we'll go out to Tuesday. We have a storm that is sitting in much of the same place here, albeit weaker than on the GFS forecast. It is weaker here, and the Euro is much further towards the west. You can see this is about the Euro position, this is the GFS position, and so they are split between just about 300 nautical miles. Now, the upper level steering flow at this time, if you jump up to the 500 millibar height anomalies, is going to be one that generally wants to turn the storm closer in towards the Mexican coastline here. we can tell that we have this upper level trough here that is now digging in within the next couple of days. And because this is a pretty powerful storm during this time, it's going to want to try to sneak northward. Now, we can see here on the Euro, for example, again, same 500 millibar height anomalies, that indeed this trough is here. So this is a pretty good, consistent idea that we're going to be having a trough in some type of storm in this general region within about 4 to 5 days or so. Now, with the main difference here on the Euro is that we get a weaker storm, and in fact, it tries to go a little, it's much further west, so it takes a little bit more time to move northward. Well, we still get that northward tug, and this ends up kind of creeping in towards the Baja coastline here. Whereas on this particular run of the GFS, you can see it's a much sharper turn around this trough here, digging in much sharper and stronger during this time, and that means a stronger and sharper turn towards the northeast here around kind of this weakness here. And this would be one that, again, within just a couple 100 miles could be, some pretty significant impacts to somewhere here from the Baja all the way down through the central Mexican coastline on the eastern Pacific side. So we could be dealing with a pretty significant storm here within this time, somewhere along near the Mexican coastline. And during this time, in fact, this could be quite an intense storm. 941 indicated here down to 939. Could be a very strong storm, but by the end of the forecast period, it looks like that a displaced anticyclone may begin to start shearing the storm, almost reminiscent of what Ida was dealing with as it was approaching the Louisiana coastline. By the way, the video for that will be coming very soon. But we'll be watching this very closely. Again, there could be some pretty substantial impacts to somewhere along the Mexican coastline, from the Baja coastline all the way down here towards the central Mexican coastline on the East Pacific side. So we'll be watching that very closely. And as for the Atlantic Basin, everything seems to be so far quiet for the time being. All right. With that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.